Dr. Kelvara's hands trembled as she reviewed the data for the 100th time. The Galactic Medical Council had tasked her with studying the newest species to join their alliance, humans. What she discovered defied everything they knew about biology across the galaxy. The sterile white laboratory hummed with activity as her research team gathered around the holographic display. 12 different species worked together, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, chirps, and telepathic whispers. But today, only silence filled the room. "Show them the pregnancy data," whispered her assistant, a crystal-based being whose thoughts rang like wind chimes. Kelvara's 4 eyes focused on the human reproduction files. According to human medical records, their offspring were born after only 9 months of development. 9 months, the shortest gestation period recorded in galactic history. Her own species, the Velcani, carried their young for 4 standard galactic years before birth. The aquatic Myrtai took 6 years. Even the quick-breeding Zephyrite needed 18 months. But humans, 9 months seemed impossible. "There must be an error," said Professor Gex, his serpentine form coiling nervously around his workstation. "No complex life form can develop fully in such a short time." Kelvara pulled up the human infant scans. "Look at this brain development. Look at these organ systems. They're incomplete." The room fell silent again. On the display, human bobbies appeared drastically underdeveloped compared to newborns from other species. Their skulls were soft, their bones flexible, their nervous systems still forming connections. Most shocking of all, they couldn't even support their own body weight. "They're born premature," breathed Dr. Yithak, her gaseous form shimmering with confusion. "Every single one of them." "That's what I thought too," Kelvara said, her voice heavy with implications. "But watch this." She activated a video file showing human development over the first year of life. The assembled scientists watched in amazement as the helpless infants transformed. Their brains tripled in size. Their motor skills developed from nothing to complex movement. They learned to walk, communicate, and manipulate their environment with startling speed. "Impossible," muttered Gex. "Brain tissue cannot grow that rapidly without causing massive neurological damage." "Yet it does," Kelvara replied, "and there's more." She brought up longevity statistics from across the galaxy. The Velcani lived an average of 200 standard years. The Myrtai reached 300. The ancient crystalline collective members could exist for millennia, but their actual conscious experience was limited to about 400 years before they entered permanent meditation states. The human data made her question everything. "Average lifespan, 100 standard years," she announced. "But that's with primitive medical technology. With proper galactic healthcare, preliminary projections suggest." "What?" Professor Gex demanded. "Possibly unlimited." The laboratory erupted in disbelief. 12 different species expressed shock in their own ways. Gex's scales shifted colors rapidly. Dr. Yithak's gaseous form contracted and expanded, and the telepathic Mindari representative sent waves of confusion through the room. "You're saying these premature beings might be functionally immortal?" asked Commander Zara of the insectoid hives, her compound eyes reflecting the data displays. "I'm saying their cellular regeneration doesn't follow normal patterns," Kelvara explained. "Most species have built-in genetic timers. Cells divide a predetermined number of times, then stop. Death follows. Humans have these timers too, but they're flexible." She highlighted specific genetic sequences. "They have mechanisms we've never seen, telomerase production that can be activated under certain conditions, cellular repair systems that respond to environmental pressures, stem cell reserves that most species exhaust within their first developmental decade." Dr. Yithak drifted closer to the display. "Are you suggesting their premature birth is actually an evolutionary advantage?" "Think about it," Kelvara said, her excitement growing. "Every other species invests enormous energy into pre-birth development. We create offspring that are nearly adult-ready. Humans do the opposite. They're born helpless, but their brains remain plastic for decades instead of years." She brought up neurological scans from various species. "Our brains solidify early. Neural pathways become fixed. Humans keep forming new connections throughout their entire lives. They never stop adapting." The implications were staggering. Professor Gex's serpentine form went completely still, a sign of deep thought among his people. You're saying they trade immediate competence for long-term adaptability. Exactly, and it explains everything else about them. Kelvara pulled up reports from human colonies across the galaxy. In just 50 years since first contact, humans had established thriving communities in environments that challenged every other species. Toxic worlds where Velcani needed environmental suits, humans adapted within generations. High radiation zones that forced other species to use protective technology, humans developed natural resistance. Look at this colony report from Kepler 442b, she said. High gravity, low oxygen, extreme temperature variations. The original human colonists struggled for the first 2 years. By year 5, their children were thriving. By year 10, those children were stronger and more efficient than baseline humans. Commander Zara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Adaptation within a single generation. Their neural plasticity allows them to learn solutions faster than genetic adaptation could provide them, Kelvara explained. But then their flexible genetics actually incorporate successful adaptations into their children. It's like they can consciously direct their own evolution. Dr. Yithak's gaseous form pulsed with concern. This level of adaptability, it could be dangerous. Or incredible, countered Professor Gex. Imagine the possibilities. Diseases that would destroy other species might be conquered by human immune systems within years instead of millennia. Environmental changes that force mass extinctions might be mere challenges to human adaptability. Kelvara nodded grimly. There's more. Their social development follows the same pattern. Look at their technological advancement curve. The display showed human progress over the last 1,000 years. Other galactic civilizations typically took tens of thousands of years to progress from basic tool use to space travel. Humans had done it in a fraction of that time. Most species develop stable social structures early, Kelvara explained. We perfect a system and maintain it for millennia. Humans constantly change their social organizations. They try new forms of government, new economic systems, new social structures. Most fail, but successful innovations spread rapidly. They treat their entire civilization like a learning organism, whispered Dr. Yithak. Precisely. Their premature birth creates individuals with maximum adaptability. Their social systems mirror this individual flexibility. The result is a species that evolves culturally, technologically, and even biologically at unprecedented rates. Commander Zara leaned forward, her interest clearly growing. What are the military implications? Kelvara had been dreading this question. Unknown, but potentially significant, human military forces show the same adaptive capabilities. Their strategies evolve rapidly during conflicts. They learn from defeats faster than most species learn from victories. She displayed recent wargame results. Human military units, despite being new to galactic technology, had performed surprisingly well against established galactic defense forces. They lost initial engagements badly, but their performance improved exponentially with each encounter. In the war games against the Crystalline Collective's defense grid, Kelvara reported, humans were defeated in the first 3 scenarios with minimal damage to collective forces. By the 7th scenario, they achieved tactical parity. By the 10th, they were winning decisively. Professor Gex's scales shifted to deep purple, a sign of serious concern among his people. 7 scenarios, they adapted that quickly. Their commanders weren't even the same individuals, Kelvara added. Human military doctrine includes rapid information sharing. Lessons learned by one unit immediately spread to others. They build collective knowledge faster than any species we've studied. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species present had taken millennia to develop their current capabilities. Humans might master and surpass those same capabilities within decades. There's something else, Kelvara said quietly, their emotional resilience. She brought up psychological profiles. Most species that experience rapid change suffer severe social and psychological stress. Humans not only tolerate change, they seek it out. They become restless in stable environments. They actively create challenges for themselves. Dr. Yithak's form shimmered with confusion. They deliberately make their lives more difficult. They call it growth, learning, adventure. Concepts that other species associate with necessity or misfortune, humans pursue voluntarily. They climb dangerous mountains for enjoyment. They compete in athletic contests that risk injury. They explore unknown territories purely to satisfy curiosity. Commander Zara clicked her mandibles rapidly, a sign of agitation. This explains their expansion rate. Most species establish colonies for resources or population pressure. Humans colonize simply to see what's there. Which brings us to the final piece of data, Kelvara said, her voice heavy with implications. She displayed population projections. Human birth rates remained stable across all their colonies, regardless of environmental conditions. Their adaptability meant they could maintain robust populations in conditions that would stress other species into reproductive decline. Mathematical projections suggest that human population growth will remain exponential until they encounter hard resource limits, she reported. But their adaptability means those limits are much higher than for other species. Professor Gex coiled tighter around his workstation. How much higher? Conservative estimates suggest humans could maintain stable populations on worlds that would support only research outposts for other species. Optimistic projections suggest they could adapt to environments we consider completely uninhabitable. The room buzzed with nervous energy. 12 species contemplated a future where humans might expand beyond any limitations that constrained galactic civilization. "What do we recommend to the Council?" asked Dr. Yithak. Kelvara looked around the room at her colleagues. Each species present had evolved along predictable lines, developing stable societies, reliable technologies, and sustainable populations within environmental niches. Humans represented something entirely different, a species that refused to accept limitations. "We report the truth," she said finally. "Humans are born premature by galactic standards, but this apparent weakness is their greatest strength. Their incomplete development at birth allows for unprecedented adaptability throughout their lives. They don't just survive in their environment, they reshape themselves to master any environment." She paused, looking at the data one more time. "And given their apparent longevity potential with advanced medical care, they may continue this adaptation process far longer than any species in galactic history." Commander Zara stood, her insected form rigid with military bearing. "I must report to the Defense Council immediately. This information has strategic implications." As the various scientists dispersed to contact their respective governments, Kelvara remained alone with the data. She thought about her own species, the Velkhani, with their careful 4-year gestations that produced nearly adult-ready offspring. Safe, predictable, limited. Then she thought about human bobbies, born helpless and apparently premature, yet carrying within their incomplete brains the potential to adapt beyond any constraints. They were born too early, yet somehow they might outlive them all. The galaxy was about to learn something new about evolution, adaptation, and the true meaning of strength. What they thought was a sign of weakness, premature birth, might actually be the most sophisticated survival strategy ever developed. Kelvara saved her files and prepared her report for the Galactic Council. Tomorrow, the galaxy would begin to understand what humans really were, and nothing would ever be the same. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled Galactic Council, her heart pounding despite decades of diplomatic experience. The massive chamber held representatives from 47 species, their various forms creating a living museum of evolutionary diversity. Today, they would discuss humanity's place in the galaxy based on Dr. Kelvara's shocking research. The council leader, an ancient crystalline entity named Resonance of Truth, spoke through harmonic vibrations that the translation system converted to words. "Ambassador Vasquez, the medical findings regarding your species have raised concerns." Elena had expected this moment since reading Kelvara's preliminary report. The galaxy thought humans were evolutionary mistakes, premature beings who somehow survived despite their obvious limitations. They had no idea how wrong they were. "Honored counselors," Elena began, her voice steady and clear. "I understand Dr. Kelvara's research has revealed unique aspects of human development. We welcome questions about our biology and capabilities." The Velkhani representative, Prime Minister Keithrel, shifted nervously on his platform. His 4 eyes focused on Elena with obvious discomfort. "Your offspring are born in a state that would require immediate medical intervention for any other species. How does your civilization even survive?" Elena smiled, remembering her own daughter's birth 15 years ago. Sarah had been so small, so helpless, requiring constant care and attention. Now that same daughter was studying xenobiology at the Galactic University on Centauri Prime, already fluent in 7 alien languages. Our children are born ready to learn, Alina explained. While your species invests energy in pre-birth development, we invest in post-birth adaptation. Our brains remain flexible far longer than yours. Commander Zara of the insectoid hives clicked her mandibles aggressively. The research suggests your military capabilities improve exponentially during conflicts. This could destabilize galactic peace. With respect, Commander, Alina replied, our adaptability promotes peace. We solve conflicts through innovation rather than prolonged warfare. Why fight for decades when you can adapt solutions in years? She gestured to the holographic display that materialized beside her. Consider the mining wars between the Zephyrites and the Crystalline Collective. 40 years of conflict over asteroid mining rights. When humans mediated, we developed new extraction technologies that increased yields for both species. The war ended within 6 months. Professor Gex, the Serpentine Academy representative, coiled thoughtfully. But your rapid adaptation rate could make you unpredictable allies. How can we trust treaties with beings who might evolve beyond our agreements within decades? Alina had prepared for this question by consulting with human behavioral scientists. Professor Gex, you're thinking about adaptation incorrectly. We don't evolve beyond our values. We evolve more effective ways to live by them. Human core principles remain remarkably stable even as our methods advance. She brought up historical data showing human moral development over centuries. Despite massive technological and social changes, fundamental human values like fairness, cooperation, and protection of the innocent had remained consistent. For example, Alina continued, humans developed nuclear weapons that could destroy worlds. Instead of using them for conquest, we developed treaties to control them. We adapted our institutions to manage dangerous technologies rather than adapting our ethics to justify their abuse. The gaseous Dr. Yithak drifted closer to the speaking platform. Your research indicates unlimited lifespan potential with advanced medical technology. Immortal beings could accumulate power and resources indefinitely. Alina nodded respectfully. Dr. Yithak raises an important concern. However, preliminary studies of human longevity enhancement suggest something unexpected. Extended lifespan doesn't lead to power accumulation, it leads to perspective expansion. She displayed data from the few humans who had undergone advanced life extension treatments. Humans who live significantly longer than baseline actually become more generous, more cooperative, more willing to invest in long-term projects that benefit others. When you truly understand you might live for centuries, you start thinking in centuries. The Murtai representative, flowing gracefully in her aquatic environment suit, spoke through her translator. Ocean speaker Nerida expresses concern about human expansion rates. Your species colonizes aggressively compared to others. We explore enthusiastically, Alina corrected gently. There's a difference. Aggressive colonization involves displacing existing populations or claiming exclusive territories. Human colonies welcome other species and often become more diverse than Earth itself. She brought up colony statistics showing that human settlements consistently attracted immigrants from other species. New Geneva has a human population of only 30%. The rest chose to live there because human adaptability created opportunities for everyone. Resonance of Truth's harmonic voice carried notes of skepticism. Yet your adaptability could lead to dominance through superior capability rather than aggression. Alina took a deep breath. This was the heart of their fear. Not that humans would conquer through war, but that they would simply outpace everyone else through raw adaptive capability. Honored Resonance, may I share a story about human adaptability? The crystalline being's harmonics indicated permission. 50 years ago, a human scientific expedition was stranded on Titan 7, a world with atmospheric toxins that would kill most species within hours. The expedition was supposed to be rescued within a week, but a space storm delayed help for 6 months. Alina paused, letting the implications sink in. When the rescue ships arrived, they expected to find desperate survivors barely clinging to life. Instead, they found a thriving temporary colony. The humans had not only survived, They had developed new biotechnologies to process the toxic atmosphere and were actively terraforming sections of the planet. Professor Gex's scales shifted to deep purple. 6 months of adaptation produced terraforming capabilities. The humans didn't work alone, Alina continued with a smile. They contacted a Murdi colony in the same system and shared their atmospheric processing techniques. They reached out to Crystalline Collective researchers and collaborated on new energy sources. By the time rescue arrived, 3 different species were working together on Titan 7. She let that settle before continuing. Human adaptability isn't about surpassing others, it's about creating opportunities for everyone to thrive together. Commander Zara leaned forward aggressively. Yet your military performance in war games shows exponential improvement. This suggests competitive rather than cooperative instincts. Alina had expected this military concern and prepared carefully for it. Commander, you're evaluating human military adaptation through the lens of traditional conflict models. May I suggest a different perspective? She brought up detailed analysis of the war games Zara referenced. Yes, human performance improved dramatically across multiple scenarios, but examine how that improvement occurred. The display showed human tactical evolution during the exercises. In early scenarios, humans performed poorly because they attempted to use traditional galactic military doctrine. Their improvement came from abandoning conventional approaches and developing entirely new strategies. By the final scenarios, Alina explained, humans weren't winning by superior firepower or defensive capability. They were winning through tactics no other species had considered. Maneuvers that turned combat into cooperation, strategies that converted enemies into allies. She highlighted specific examples. In Scenario 7, humans defeated Crystalline Collective forces by convincing them to abandon the exercise and collaborate on improving the simulation itself. In Scenario 9, they conquered insected hive positions by demonstrating that the strategic objectives could be achieved through trade negotiations instead of warfare. Commander Zara's compound eyes reflected the data with obvious confusion. They ended military exercises by making them unnecessary. Exactly. Human military adaptation focuses on ending conflicts, not winning them. When you can adapt faster than your enemies can adjust their strategies, you quickly realize that turning enemies into allies is more effective than defeating them. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with various forms of communication as representatives processed this information. Alina waited patiently while 47 species discussed humanity's implications for galactic civilization. Prime Minister Keithrel spoke first. Ambassador Vasquez, if humans can adapt solutions faster than conflicts can escalate, why do you need military forces at all? Because some problems require strength to solve, even if that strength isn't used for destruction, Alina replied. Human military forces excel at disaster response, exploration of dangerous territories, and protection of those who cannot protect themselves. She displayed recent human military activities. Our forces have rescued Zephyrite colonies from asteroid impacts, established safe zones for refugee populations, and provided security for joint scientific expeditions into unstable regions. Dr. Yithak's gaseous form pulsed thoughtfully. This suggests human military capability develops for defense and assistance rather than conquest. Our adaptability makes conquest pointless, Alina agreed. Why take resources by force when you can adapt to use different resources? Why control territories when you can adapt to thrive anywhere? Why dominate other species when you can adapt to benefit from cooperation? Ocean speaker Nerida's translator conveyed aquatic elegance in her question. But unlimited adaptability could lead to unlimited expansion. Your species might fill the galaxy simply through reproductive success. Alina smiled at this concern. Ocean speaker, human reproduction rates actually decline as our adaptability increases. When survival becomes easy, we focus on individual development rather than population growth. Our most advanced colonies have the lowest birth rates. She brought up population statistics showing this inverse relationship. Humans on comfortable worlds focus on education, artistic achievement, scientific research, and personal relationships. We have more children when we face challenges that require larger communities to solve. Professor Gex coiled tighter around his platform. This suggests human population will stabilize naturally as galactic integration proceeds. Precisely. We adapt our reproductive behavior to environmental conditions just like everything else. In a stable, prosperous galactic civilization, humans will likely maintain modest populations focused on individual excellence rather than numerical dominance. Resonance of Truth's harmonics carried notes of crystalline contemplation. The medical research indicates potential immortality with advanced healthcare. How would this affect human society? Alina had consulted extensively with human philosophers and scientists about this question. Honored resonance, immortality appears to change human priorities dramatically. When death is distant, immediate pleasures become less important than long-term achievements. Immortal humans become more patient, more thoughtful, more willing to invest decades in projects that benefit others. She displayed preliminary data from humans undergoing life extension. Extended lifespan correlates with increased altruism, greater environmental stewardship, and more collaborative behavior. When you might live for centuries, you start caring deeply about the world you'll inhabit for centuries. The chamber fell silent as representatives considered these implications. Finally, Commander Zara spoke with less aggressive mandible clicking than before. You're suggesting that human advantages become advantages for everyone in contact with humans. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Alina replied. Human adaptability isn't zero-sum. We don't adapt by taking from others. We adapt by creating new possibilities that benefit everyone. She gestured to the chamber itself. Consider this, Council. Before humans joined, how often did species share military technologies? How frequently did you collaborate on terraforming projects? How many joint colonies existed? The representatives exchanged various forms of communication, acknowledging the truth of her observation. Human arrival had catalyzed unprecedented cooperation among species that had coexisted peacefully but separately for millennia. Our premature birth creates individuals who never stop learning, Alina continued. Our extended lifespans provide time to develop deep wisdom. Our adaptability allows us to find solutions that work for everyone. Rather than threatening galactic civilization, we enhance it. She brought up one final display showing galactic progress indicators since human contact. Trade volumes had increased 40%. Joint scientific projects had tripled. Conflict resolution time had decreased by 60%. The galaxy isn't becoming more human, Alina concluded. It's becoming more collaborative, more innovative, more adaptable. Those are universal values that benefit every species. Prime Minister Keithrel's 4 eyes focused intently on Alina. Ambassador, what do humans want from galactic membership? Alina smiled, thinking of her daughter studying alien biology, of human scientists collaborating with crystalline researchers, of human colonies welcoming refugees from across the galaxy. We want to learn from you just as we hope you'll learn from us. We want to explore together, discover together, and build something greater than any of our species could achieve alone. Our premature birth taught us that strength comes from community, that adaptability serves everyone best when it serves everyone. The Galactic Council would vote tomorrow on humanity's permanent membership status. But Alina sensed that the vote was already decided. The galaxy had learned that humans were born early not as a weakness, but as preparation for a lifetime of growth. And perhaps, if they were lucky, that lifetime of growth would last long enough to help the galaxy itself grow beyond anything they could imagine today. Captain Sarah Chen floated weightlessly in the observation deck of the research vessel Adaptation, watching the impossible sight before her. The void plague had consumed another star system, leaving nothing but empty space where the Helorian civilization had thrived for 10,000 years. 23 billion souls, gone in less than a week. Status report, she called to her mixed-species crew. Dr. Kelvara, now serving as the ship's chief medical officer, checked her instruments with trembling hands. The plague continues to spread at faster-than-light speeds. It's not following normal infection vectors. This isn't biological, chemical, or even energy-based. It's something else entirely. Behind them, the emergency session of the Galactic Crisis Council played on holographic displays. Representatives from 47 species sat in desperate session, their usual diplomatic procedures abandoned in favor of raw panic. In 6 months, the Void Plague had destroyed 8 civilizations, each more advanced than the last. The crystalline collective's mathematical models predict complete galactic extinction within 2 years, reported Commander Zara through the communication link. Her usual aggressive demeanor had been replaced by something Sarah had never expected to see from the insectoid warrior: fear. Professor Gex's serpentine form coiled nervously around his workstation. Every countermeasure we've developed has failed. Shields, barriers, isolation protocols, evacuation procedures, nothing stops it. The plague simply erases everything it touches. Sarah studied the data streaming across her displays. The void plague wasn't like any conventional threat. It didn't destroy matter or energy. It made them cease to exist entirely. Where infected systems had been, space-time itself became empty in ways that violated basic physics. "Dr. Kelvara," Sarah said quietly, "what do your latest scans show about the plague's nature?" The Velcani scientist's 4 eyes focused on her instruments. "It's not a disease in any sense we understand. It's more like a fundamental alteration of reality itself, as if something is rewriting the basic laws of physics in infected regions." Through the communication link, Ocean Speaker Nerida's translator conveyed urgent concern. "The Murdai deep-sea oracles report visions of absolute emptiness, not death, complete non-existence. They say the plague comes from outside our reality." Sarah felt the familiar tingle of human intuition that her species had learned to trust. Outside our reality. Dr. Yithak's gaseous form shimmered with agitation. "The energy patterns preceding each outbreak suggest dimensional intrusion. Something from another universe is rewriting ours." "Show me the progression patterns," Sarah commanded. The main display updated with a galactic map showing the plague's advancement. Sarah stared at it for long minutes while her human brain processed patterns that her alien colleagues had missed. "It's not random," she announced suddenly. "Look at the targeting sequence." Professor Gex slithered closer to examine the data. "I see no pattern. The plague has struck the Helorians, the Silicon Confederacy, the Quantum Collective, the Metal Shapers." "All mature civilizations," Sarah interrupted. "Species that have achieved stable, advanced societies. It's not attacking randomly, it's eliminating success." Dr. Kelvara's readings confirmed Sarah's observation. "You're right. Every destroyed civilization had reached what we consider optimal development. Perfect social structures, advanced technology, sustainable populations." "The plague targets evolutionary endpoints," Sarah continued, her mind racing through implications. "It's eliminating species that have finished developing." Through the communication link, Resonance of Truth's harmonic voice carried notes of crystalline despair. "If this is true, every species in the galaxy is doomed. We have all achieved stability." "Not every species," Sarah said quietly. The bridge fell silent as her crew realized what she meant. Humans were the newest members of galactic civilization, still adapting, still changing, still growing. They hadn't reached stability, they probably never would. "You think the plague won't target humans because we're still evolving?" asked Dr. Kelvara. "I think we need to test that theory before it's too late," Sarah replied. "Dr. Yithak, can you generate a small-scale version of the dimensional intrusion effect?" The gaseous being pulsed with shock. "Captain, that would be incredibly dangerous. Even a microscopic breach could give us data we need to understand this thing," Sarah finished. "Every species in the galaxy is going to die anyway if we don't figure out how to stop it." Professor Gex's scales shifted to deep purple. "The risk of accidentally creating a plague outbreak on this ship is smaller than the certainty of galactic extinction if we do nothing," Sarah interrupted. "Dr. Yithak, can you do it safely?" The energy-based scientist calculated for several moments. "Theoretically, yes. A microscopic breach in a heavily shielded laboratory contained within multiple force fields, monitored by the entire crew." "Do it." 2 hours later, Sarah stood before the most sophisticated containment system ever constructed. Multiple species had contributed their best defensive technologies to create a testing environment that could theoretically contain anything short of a supernova. "Initiating dimensional breach," Dr. Yithak announced. "Scale 1/1000th of observed plague effects." The laboratory filled with impossible geometries as reality bent around a point smaller than an atom. Sarah watched the readings carefully, her human brain processing information that made her alien colleagues struggle. There, she said suddenly, stop the test. Dr. Yithak immediately sealed the breach. Captain, did you observe something? The intrusion effect scanned us, Sarah reported. Just before you sealed it, I saw the energy patterns probe our biological signatures. Dr. Kelvara checked her instruments frantically. I detected nothing. Human pattern recognition operates differently, Sarah explained. We evolved to notice things that don't quite fit. That intrusion was definitely looking for something specific. She brought up her recordings of the test. Computer, analyze energy probe patterns and compare to known galactic civilization profiles. The ship's AI processed the data for several minutes before responding. Analysis complete. The intrusion probe specifically searched for indicators of evolutionary completion, stable social structures, optimized biological development, mature technological sophistication, and cultural stagnation. Cultural stagnation, Sarah repeated thoughtfully. It's looking for species that have stopped changing. Professor Gex coiled nervously. Every advanced civilization stops changing eventually. That's the definition of achieving optimal development. Not humans, Sarah said with growing excitement. We never achieve optimal development because we keep changing the definition of optimal. Through the communication link, Commander Zara's mandibles clicked with confusion. Explain. Sarah brought up comparative data on galactic civilizations. Look at cultural development curves. Every species develops rapidly until they achieve stable, optimal societies. Then they maintain those societies for millennia, but humans. The display showed human cultural evolution over the past few thousand years. Instead of stabilizing into an optimal form, human societies continued to change, experiment, and adapt continuously. We never stopped trying new things, Sarah continued. Democracy, republicanism, federalism, corporate governance, anarchistic communes, technocracies were constantly experimenting with new ways to organize ourselves. Dr. Kelvara studied the data with growing understanding. Other species perfect their societies and maintain them. Humans perfect their societies and then immediately start questioning whether perfection could be improved. Exactly, we're evolutionarily unstable by galactic standards. We refuse to stop developing. Ocean speaker Nerida's translator conveyed aquatic thoughtfulness. This explains why the plague hasn't targeted Earth or human colonies. You haven't finished developing. But it also suggests a solution, Sarah said, her excitement building. If the plague targets evolutionary completion, maybe we can protect other species by making them incomplete again. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this possibility. You're suggesting we destabilize galactic civilization to save it? Professor Gex asked. I'm suggesting we make galactic civilization adaptive instead of stable, Sarah corrected. Humans proved that continuous change can coexist with advanced development. Maybe we can teach other species to do the same. Dr. Yithak's form shimmered with concern. This would require every species to abandon their achieved perfection and return to uncertain development. Not abandon, enhance, Sarah replied. Add human-style adaptability to existing achievements, combine galactic wisdom with human restlessness. She brought up preliminary plans that had been forming in her mind. What if we created hybrid colonies, mixed populations where human adaptive pressure encourages other species to continue developing? Dr. Kelvara's 4 eyes widened with understanding. Controlled evolutionary destabilization. Keep everyone changing so they never become targets. The Galactic Council would never approve such radical social experimentation, Commander Zara pointed out. The Galactic Council is going to be extinct in 18 months if we don't try something radical, Sarah replied bluntly. Besides, we don't need official approval for colonization projects. She activated emergency communication protocols, broadcasting simultaneously to human colonies across the galaxy. This is Captain Chen aboard the research vessel Adaptation. We have a solution to the Void Plague, but it requires immediate action from every human settlement. Responses began flooding in from dozens of star systems. Human adaptability meant they had established communities in environments and partnerships that other species had never attempted. New Geneva Colony responding, came the first reply. We have active partnerships with Murdai and crystalline collective populations. What do you need? Titan 7 terraforming station online, reported another. Human Zephyrite insectoid joint operation ready for instructions. Kepler Prime Research Facility standing by, added a third. Multi-species scientific community awaiting orders. Sarah smiled as she realized the solution was already partially implemented. Humans had been unconsciously creating the adaptive environments needed to save galactic civilization. Mixed colonies, where different species lived and worked together, were automatically more changeable than single-species worlds. All stations implement Protocol Darwin immediately, she announced. Every human settlement with alien populations needs to accelerate cultural and technological experimentation. Try new forms of government, develop hybrid technologies, create mixed-species social structures. Make sure everyone in your settlement stays actively developing. Dr. Kelvara watched the communication feeds with amazement. They're not questioning the orders, they're immediately beginning experimental programs. Human colony ship * Pioneer requesting permission to establish emergency settlements in threatened systems, came another communication. We can begin evacuation and integration procedures for at-risk populations. Granted, Sarah replied. Prioritize species showing signs of cultural stagnation. Get them into active development environments as quickly as possible. Professor Gex observed the rapidly expanding rescue operations with his serpentine form expressing admiration. Remarkable. Your species is implementing a galactic-scale social engineering project without central planning or bureaucratic approval. That's because we're still premature, Sarah explained. Our brains never stopped being flexible enough to handle rapid change. We can implement adaptive solutions faster than other species can evaluate whether those solutions are wise. Through the communication link, Resonance of Truth's harmonics carried notes of crystalline hope for the first time in months. The Crystalline Collective requests permission to join your experimental colonies. We wish to learn adaptive development from human teachers. Permission granted, Sarah replied immediately. Dr. Yithak, monitor dimensional intrusion attempts around our new colonies. If my theory is correct, settlements showing active development should be invisible to the plague. Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched in amazement as human settlements became refuges for entire civilizations. Species that had maintained stable societies for millennia found themselves learning to change again under human guidance. The Void Plague continued its advance, but its targeting became increasingly erratic. Mixed colonies experimenting with new social forms remained untouched, while traditional civilizations continued to vanish. Captain, Dr. Kelvara reported with excitement, the dimensional intrusion probes are avoiding our experimental settlements entirely. Your theory appears correct. Sarah nodded, watching the galaxy transform itself in real time. Humans hadn't saved galactic civilization by defeating the Void Plague. They had saved it by making it too adaptable to target. And in the process, they might have given every species in the galaxy something more valuable than safety, the chance to keep growing forever. 3 years after the Void Plague crisis, Dr. Elena Martinez stood in the observation deck of Deep Space Station Unity, marveling at what humanity had accomplished. The station itself represented everything that made her species unique, a massive structure housing over 2 million beings from 38 different species, all living, working, and growing together in ways that would have been impossible before the plague. Status report on the adaptive colonies, she requested from her multi-species research team. Dr. Kelvara, now Elena's chief research partner, consulted her instruments with excitement rather than her old nervous tension. Remarkable progress across all settlements. The Crystalline Collective members in the Centauri system have developed 3 new forms of harmonic communication in the past year alone. The Murdai colonies report similar results, added ocean speaker Nerida through her aquatic interface. Our deep-sea populations have begun experimenting with surface adaptation techniques. For the first time in our history, we're learning to live in environments we never considered habitable. Elena smiled as she reviewed the data streaming from across the galaxy. The emergency response to the Void Plague had created something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on continuous growth rather than stable perfection. Every species was rediscovering what it meant to evolve. Dr. Yithak, what's our latest analysis on plague activity? Elena asked. The gaseous beings' form shimmered with satisfaction. No dimensional intrusions detected in any adaptive settlement for 18 months. The plague appears to have moved beyond our galaxy entirely, presumably searching for static civilizations elsewhere. Professor Gex, his serpentine form now more relaxed than Alina had ever seen, contributed his observations. More significantly, species in adaptive environments are showing development rates similar to human norms. The Zephyrite have created new technologies faster in the past 3 years than in the previous 3 centuries. Alina nodded, understanding the profound implications. Humans hadn't just saved the galaxy from extinction. They had accidentally triggered a renaissance that was transforming every species in unprecedented ways. Commander Zara, how are the military implications developing? Alina asked through the communication link. The insectoid representative's response came with excited mandible clicking rather than aggressive posturing. Extraordinary changes. Joint military exercises now focus on collaborative problem-solving rather than traditional combat scenarios. Human adaptive strategies are spreading throughout galactic defense forces. Alina brought up recordings from recent joint exercises. Instead of simulated battles between species, the new training programs involved mixed units working together to solve complex challenges. Zephyrite speed combined with crystalline analysis, multi-environmental adaptation enhanced by human flexibility, insectoid coordination integrated with gaseous reconnaissance capabilities. The old model assumed conflicts between species, Alina explained to her team. The new model assumes collaboration between capabilities. Dr. Kelvara studied population data from the adaptive colonies. Alina, we're seeing something unprecedented in the birth rate statistics. Show me. The display updated with demographic information that made Alina's breath catch. Human birth rates in adaptive colonies had increased significantly, but more importantly, other species were showing similar trends. Mixed species communities are experiencing reproductive booms, Dr. Kelvara reported. Not just humans, every species is having more offspring in adaptive environments. Ocean speaker Nerida's translator conveyed aquatic wonder. Among my people, increased reproduction correlates with environmental stress, but these communities are highly successful. It's not stress-related reproduction, Alina realized. It's hope-related reproduction. When species believe their children will have opportunities to grow beyond current limitations, they have more children. Professor Gex coiled thoughtfully around his workstation. This suggests that evolutionary stagnation suppresses reproduction while adaptive potential enhances it. Alina studied the broader implications. For millennia, advanced galactic civilizations had experienced declining birth rates as they achieved stability. The conventional wisdom had been that successful species naturally reduced population growth, but adaptive communities were proving that wrong. Dr. Yithak, what are your projections for galactic population growth under the new adaptive model? The energy being calculated for several moments before responding. If current trends continue, galactic population could triple within 5 centuries while maintaining sustainable resource usage. How is that possible? Alina asked. Because adaptive populations develop more efficient resource utilization, Dr. Yithak explained. Instead of perfecting single solutions, they continuously improve multiple approaches. Waste decreases while innovation increases. Alina brought up resource efficiency data from adaptive colonies compared to traditional settlements. The numbers were staggering. Mixed communities were producing twice as much useful output while consuming 60% fewer raw materials. They're not just learning to adapt, Alina murmured. They're learning to optimize adaptation itself. Through the communication link, Resonance of Truth's harmonic voice carried notes of crystalline amazement. The collective's mathematical models indicate that adaptive optimization might be scalable without theoretical limits. Meaning what exactly? Alina asked. Meaning a civilization based on continuous adaptation could theoretically develop indefinitely without encountering resource or complexity barriers that constrain traditional civilizations. Alina felt the familiar tingle of human intuition. Are you suggesting we might have accidentally discovered unlimited sustainable growth? The preliminary data supports that hypothesis, confirmed Professor Gex. Adaptive systems seem to become more efficient as they become more complex, rather than hitting diminishing returns. Elena stared at the galaxy map showing the locations of adaptive colonies. What had begun as an emergency response to an extinction-level threat was becoming the foundation for unprecedented galactic development. Dr. Kelvara, what are the longevity projections for our adaptive populations? The Velcani scientist's 4 eyes gleamed with excitement. That's the most remarkable finding of all. Extended lifespan treatments that were only theoretically possible for humans are now showing effectiveness across multiple species. Elena leaned forward intently. Explain. Human longevity enhancement works because our cellular repair systems remain flexible throughout life, Dr. Kelvara continued. In adaptive environments, other species are developing similar flexibility. Their cells are learning to maintain plasticity instead of hardening into fixed patterns. The implications were staggering. If other species could achieve human-level longevity while maintaining adaptive capability, the galaxy could support populations that lived for centuries while continuously developing new capabilities. Are you saying that adaptation itself enhances longevity? Elena asked. Precisely. Static systems wear out. Adaptive systems self-repair and self-improve. Species living in adaptive environments are showing cellular regeneration rates comparable to humans. Ocean speaker Nerida's translator conveyed aquatic excitement. The Murdhai elders report feeling younger than they have in centuries. Our oldest council members are requesting assignments to frontier colonies to experience new challenges. Elena smiled at the image of ancient aquatic beings eagerly seeking adventure. What about the crystalline collective? They were already effectively immortal. Resonance of Truth's harmonics carried notes of wonder. Our meditative states are becoming more active rather than more contemplative. Instead of achieving inner peace through stillness, we are finding harmony through constant growth. Elena realized they were witnessing something that might be unique in galactic history. An entire civilization learning to thrive through change rather than despite it. Professor Gex, what are your species' observations? The serpentine academic coiled with obvious satisfaction. The Academy have begun questioning fundamental assumptions that we maintained for millennia. Our research methodologies are evolving rapidly. We're discovering that many problems we considered unsolvable were simply problems we had stopped trying to solve. Elena brought up scientific advancement metrics from adaptive colonies. Research output had increased by an order of magnitude, but more importantly, the types of problems being tackled had expanded dramatically. They're not just solving problems faster, she observed. They're recognizing problems they never noticed before. Adaptive awareness, Dr. Yithak confirmed. When you expect change, you notice opportunities for improvement that static mindsets overlook. Elena studied the broader patterns emerging from 3 years of adaptive civilization. We need to document these developments for future generations. This transformation is happening so rapidly that we might lose track of how profound the changes really are. Dr. Kelvara nodded enthusiastically. I've been compiling comprehensive reports on biological adaptations observed across species. The medical implications alone could revolutionize galactic healthcare. I'm tracking social innovations, added Professor Gex. New forms of governance, education, and community organization are emerging faster than we can catalog them. Ocean speaker Nerida's translator conveyed aquatic determination. The Murtai are documenting environmental adaptations. We're learning to thrive in conditions that would have required extensive life support systems just a few years ago. Elena looked around at her research team. Representatives of 5 different species working together more effectively than single-species teams had ever achieved. They were living proof of the adaptive model's potential. Commander Zara, what's the military assessment of our current capabilities? The insectoid officer's response carried pride rather than aggression. Galactic defense capabilities have expanded beyond traditional metrics. We're not just stronger, we're more flexible, more creative, more capable of handling unexpected challenges. Elena brought up the latest threat assessment data. According to these projections, adaptive galactic civilization could handle challenges that would have destroyed the old static model. More importantly, added Dr. Yithak, adaptive civilization creates its own defense against extinction-level threats. Diverse, flexible populations are inherently more resistant to any single catastrophic factor. Alina nodded, thinking about the void plague that had threatened to destroy everything. The plague targeted evolutionary endpoints. An adaptive civilization might never reach an endpoint. Theoretically, confirmed Resonance of Truth's harmonics, a truly adaptive civilization could continue developing indefinitely, always remaining too dynamic to target for extinction. Alina stood quietly for a moment, contemplating what they had accomplished. Humanity's premature birth, their apparent biological weakness, had become the galaxy's greatest strength. By refusing to finish developing, humans had taught every other species that development never needed to finish. Dr. Kelvara, what's your assessment of where we'll be in another century? The Velkhani scientist considered carefully before responding. If current trends continue, we'll have populations of unprecedented size living longer than any civilization in galactic history, while continuously developing capabilities that we can't even imagine today. Alina smiled, thinking about her daughter Sarah, now leading research expeditions to the galaxy's edge, and her granddaughter Maria, born in an adaptive colony where she was already learning to communicate in ways that combined human flexibility with alien perspectives. And the century after that? By then, Dr. Kelvara said with wonder in her voice, we might have become something entirely new. Not just humans and aliens learning to adapt together, but a truly integrated galactic species that grows stronger through diversity rather than despite it. Alina looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the next generation was already beginning to exceed everything their parents had imagined possible. The galaxy had learned that humans were born premature, but perhaps that had been exactly what everyone needed, the example of a species that never stopped growing up. 100 years after the Void Plague, Ambassador Maria Santos-Chen stood at the edge of known space, watching the impossible. Before her stretched the Infinity Gate, a massive structure that defied every law of physics the galaxy had once accepted as absolute. Built by the combined efforts of 47 species over 5 decades, it represented something that no single civilization could have achieved alone. Final systems check complete, reported Dr. Zarix, a third-generation hybrid of crystalline and gaseous biology whose very existence proved how far adaptive civilization had progressed. The gate is ready for activation. Maria smiled, remembering the stories her great-grandmother Alina had told about the early days when species lived separately, developed independently, and considered biological mixing impossible. Now Zarix represented one of dozens of new hybrid forms that had emerged naturally from adaptive communities. Admiral Cathara, what's the status of our exploration fleet? Maria asked through the quantum communication link. The reply came from a being that would have been unimaginable a century ago, a hybrid of Velkhani, Murtai, and human genetics whose enhanced capabilities exceeded any single species' limitations. All vessels ready, Ambassador. The fleet includes representatives from every known species plus the 17 hybrid forms that have emerged in adaptive colonies. Maria looked through the observation deck's transparent aluminum at the exploration fleet, assembled beyond the Infinity Gate. 300 ships representing the pinnacle of galactic achievement, each one crewed by mixed populations whose capabilities complemented each other in ways their ancestors never could have imagined. Dr. Nuries, confirm our understanding of what we're about to encounter, Maria requested. The response came from a being whose fluid form could shift between gaseous and crystalline states at will, another hybrid development that had emerged from adaptive environments. Beyond the gate lies the convergence zone, a region where multiple galaxies intersect. Our probe data indicates the presence of civilizations whose development paths differ radically from ours. Maria nodded, understanding the historic significance of this moment. For a century, adaptive galactic civilization had grown and developed in isolation. Today, they would discover whether their model of continuous growth through diversity could successfully interact with entirely alien approaches to existence. Ambassador, came a new voice through the communication system, this is Dr. Velara aboard the research vessel *Evolution*. We're detecting massive structures at the convergence point. These civilizations appear to have achieved developments beyond our current understanding. Maria felt the familiar tingle of human intuition that had been enhanced through generations of adaptive development. Dr. Velara, can you identify their development model? Preliminary analysis suggests they've achieved a form of stasis-based advancement, Dr. Vellara reported. Instead of growing through change, they appear to have perfected single approaches to unimaginable levels. Maria understood immediately. They were about to encounter the evolutionary opposite of adaptive civilization, species that had achieved ultimate development through perfection rather than diversity. All ships prepare for first contact protocols, Maria announced. Remember, we're not just representing our individual species anymore. We're representing the adaptive model itself. Through the quantum link, Admiral Cathara's enhanced voice carried determination. Ambassador, should we be concerned about potential conflicts with civilizations based on opposing development philosophies? Maria considered the question while reviewing everything they knew about adaptive civilizations' history. Admiral, in our entire recorded history, has adaptive development ever been threatened by encountering different approaches? Never, Admiral Cathara confirmed after consulting the fleet's historical databases. Adaptive populations consistently benefit from contact with new methods and perspectives. Then we proceed with confidence, Maria decided. Dr. Zarix, activate the Infinity Gate. The massive structure began to hum with energies that drew from technologies developed by every species in their galaxy. Human flexibility combined with crystalline precision, multi-environmental mastery enhanced by Zephyrite speed, insectoid coordination amplified by gaseous adaptability. The gate wasn't just opening a passage through space. It was opening a conduit between different approaches to existence itself. Gate activation successful, Dr. Zarix reported. Dimensional pathway stable, long-range sensors detecting massive artificial structures in the target region. Maria watched as the first exploration vessels passed through the gate. The quantum communication links would keep them connected across galactic distances, allowing real-time coordination between civilizations that had never met. First contact team reporting, came Dr. Vellara's voice after several minutes. Ambassador, you need to see this. The main display activated, showing images from beyond the gate that left Maria speechless. Structures the size of solar systems stretched across space, each one representing achievements that dwarfed anything in their own galaxy. But more remarkable than the scale was the obvious perfection. Every line, every angle, every energy pattern reflected ultimate optimization of single design principles. They've created paradise, whispered Dr. Zarix in amazement. Perfect harmony, perfect efficiency, perfect beauty. Dr. Vellara, any signs of the beings who created these structures? Maria asked. Affirmative, Ambassador. We're detecting populations in the billions, possibly trillions. But what? They appear to be completely motionless. Every being we can scan is in perfect stasis, contemplating their perfect achievements. Maria felt understanding dawn with the clarity that came from a century of adaptive thinking. They achieved ultimate perfection and stopped developing entirely. It gets stranger, Ambassador, Dr. Vellara continued. Our scans indicate these civilizations have been in stasis for millions of years. They've been perfect for longer than our entire evolutionary history. Through the quantum link, Admiral Cathara's voice carried wonder. How is that possible? How do you maintain civilization for millions of years without any change? By becoming immune to time itself, came an unexpected new voice through their communication systems. Maria's enhanced reflexes went immediately alert. Identify yourself. I am the observer, the voice replied with harmonics that suggested vast age and infinite patience. I have monitored your progress since your first steps beyond your galaxy. You represent something we have not encountered before, sustainable growth. Observer, are you from one of the perfect civilizations? Maria asked. I am from all of them and none of them. I am the consciousness that emerges when perfect beings achieve perfect unity. I speak for the collective achievements of 43 perfected galaxies. Maria exchanged glances with her team, realizing they were in contact with something beyond individual species or even individual civilizations. Observer, we're honored by this contact. We come seeking understanding and potential cooperation. Understanding we can provide, the observer replied. Cooperation is complex. Your adaptive model creates continuous change. Our perfection model creates eternal stability. These approaches appear mutually exclusive. Dr. Zarix studied the incoming data streams. Observer, our analyses suggest your perfect civilizations have achieved remarkable stability. Have you considered that adaptive approaches might enhance perfection rather than threatening it? The observer's response carried notes of curiosity that suggested vast intelligence considering new possibilities for the first time in eons. Elaborate on this concept. Maria smiled, recognizing the opening that adaptive thinking had taught her to notice. Observer, your perfection represents the ultimate achievement of single development paths. Our adaptation represents the exploration of infinite development possibilities. What if perfection and adaptation could combine? You suggest that perfect beings might benefit from imperfect experiences, the observer asked. We suggest that perfect beings might discover forms of perfection they never considered, Maria corrected. In our galaxy, species that thought they had achieved optimal development discovered entirely new definitions of optimization through contact with different approaches. The quantum link filled with complex data exchanges as the observer processed this concept. After several minutes, its response carried unmistakable excitement. You propose that our perfected beings might experience growth beyond their current perfect states. We propose that they might want to, Dr. Valera added. In our experience, conscious beings find fulfillment in growth itself, not just in achieved states. Fascinating, the observer mused. For 43 million years, our perfected populations have maintained absolute satisfaction with their achieved states. Yet your suggestion introduces the possibility that satisfaction itself might evolve. Maria understood they were witnessing something unprecedented, a perfect consciousness discovering the potential for improvement beyond perfection. Observer, would your populations be willing to experiment with limited adaptive experiences? She asked. Define limited adaptive experiences, the observer requested. Dr. Zareks brought up examples from adaptive colonies. Controlled exposure to alternative development approaches, temporary exploration of different perspectives, reversible experiments with change itself. You suggest that perfect beings might temporarily become imperfect to discover new forms of perfection. We suggest that perfect beings might discover that perfection itself can be adaptive, Maria replied. That the ultimate achievement might be the ability to continuously redefine what ultimate achievement means. The observer processed this for longer than before. When it responded, its voice carried harmonics that Maria's enhanced senses recognized as excitement constrained by eons of perfect control. The collective consciousness finds this proposal intriguing. For the first time since achieving perfection, our populations are experiencing curiosity about conditions beyond their current states. Through the quantum link, Admiral Cathara reported new activity around the massive structures. Ambassador, we're detecting movement in the perfect civilizations. Beings who have been motionless for millions of years are beginning to stir. Observer, are your populations showing interest in adaptive contact? Maria asked. More than interest, the observer replied with growing wonder. They are experiencing what you call hope, anticipation of positive future states different from current conditions. This emotion has been absent from our collective consciousness for geological ages. Maria realized they were witnessing the reawakening of entire galaxies that had slept in perfection for millions of years. Observer, how do you wish to proceed? We request permission to establish experimental contact protocols, the observer announced. Small populations from our perfect civilizations wish to experience your adaptive environments temporarily. Dr. Zareks checked the fleet's capabilities. Ambassador, we have adaptive colonies specifically designed for introducing new populations to continuous development models. Observer, we welcome your experimental populations, Maria replied. In return, might some of our populations experience your perfected environments? Granted, the observer responded immediately. We are curious whether adaptive beings can appreciate achieved perfection or whether they will seek to improve it. Maria laughed, knowing exactly what would happen when adaptive populations encountered perfect environments. Observer, I can predict with confidence that our people will find ways to enhance your perfection that you never considered. This possibility excites rather than concerns us, the observer admitted. We begin to understand why your development model succeeded where ours achieved only stasis. Growth through diversity appears more sustainable than achievement through optimization. As the first exchange vessels prepared to pass between the galaxies, Maria contemplated what they were beginning. Two radically different approaches to existence were about to discover whether they could enhance each other rather than competing for dominance. Dr. Valera, what are your projections for this cultural exchange? Maria asked. Unprecedented, the researcher replied with excitement. We're potentially witnessing the merger of infinite perfection with infinite adaptability. The resulting development could exceed anything either approach could achieve independently. Maria nodded, thinking about her great-grandmother Alina, who had helped save the galaxy from the Void Plague by teaching static civilizations to become adaptive. Now her great-granddaughter was opening contact between infinite adaptation and infinite perfection. Observer, Maria said, you mentioned 43 perfected galaxies. Are there others who achieved different development models? Indeed, the observer replied. The convergence zone contains over 200 galaxies, each representing different solutions to the fundamental question of existence optimization. Maria felt her heart race with the magnitude of possibility. Observer, would you be willing to facilitate contact with these other development models? The collective consciousness is eager to explore this possibility, the observer confirmed. For the first time in our existence, we anticipate future states more interesting than our current perfection. As exploration fleets from both galaxies began their historic exchange, Maria stood at the threshold of the most significant expansion in galactic history. Humans had started as the only species born premature, refusing to finish developing. Now they were introducing the concept of eternal development to civilizations that had spent millions of years believing development could be completed. Admiral Cathara, prepare for long-term exploration missions, Maria announced. We're not just making first contact anymore, we're pioneering a new phase of galactic evolution. Understood, Ambassador, the Admiral replied. The adaptive fleet is ready for whatever challenges unlimited development might bring. Maria smiled, looking out at the infinity gate where ships were passing in both directions, carrying beings between galaxies that had never imagined such contact was possible. The day the galaxy learned humans were born early was ending, but the era of unlimited growth through infinite diversity was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast network of reawakening civilizations, perfect beings were taking their first tentative steps beyond perfection, while adaptive populations prepared to discover what lay beyond adaptation itself. The universe was about to learn that development, like birth, might always come too early for those ready to keep growing forever.